So at this moment I guess we can put Dewey on the suspects list with Billy. But wait a minute. How did Gail know about Sydney's attack? And how was she on the scene in the first place? Add Gail. What about the cameraman? Add Kenny. Funny how practice ran late. But just after the attack, Tatum arrives. Add Tatum. And where is the father? After all, the costume is called Father Death. This was before he was rechristened Ghostface, by the way. Add the father too. That's quite the list of suspects. The next day at school, things really don't get any better. Dewey announces the calls didn't come from Billy's phone and that he's been released. Gail puts the spooks on Sydney by connecting the new killings with the killings of her mother, which would prove she's right about Cotton's innocence.
Do you know what that could do for my book sales?
The school is alive with pranks and gossip about Sydney's mother, leading to another attack in the women's toilets, which in turn leads to the suspension of all classes and a citywide curfew. The Fonz shows his disgust at the pranks and almost assaults 2 of his students with a pair of scissors. In school alone a little later, and clearly not the most popular principal, Ghostface decides that school is for chumps, and makes a meal out of the man in a kill which, I'll admit, to begin with, didn't make much sense to me, but in the grand scheme of things it's actually a really clever plot point. Back at Tatum, Sydney and Tatum discuss Sydney's mother and the possibility of Cotton being innocent and the original killer still being out there. Now this is the scene I was alluding to earlier, which seems almost non-existent in horror movies today. The characters simply sit and talk, like 2 normal friends would talk. There's no bad language thrown in just for the hell of it, and they're talking about something that would naturally come up given the circumstances. It's also a good scene to show Sydney's wall breaking in her belief that Cotton killed her mother, and it shows Tatum's softer, friendlier side, as she doesn't throw all this at Sydney, but she handles it with tact and understanding. Like a friend.
Well, I mean, you can only hear that Richard Gere gerbil story so many times before you have to start believing it.
We then cut to the local video store where Stu and Randy are debating who the killer could possibly be. Randy, who has a huge crush on Sydney, points the finger at Billy, who just so happens to be there, while Stu points the finger at Sydney's father, Neil Prescott. This is another favourite scene for me, as Randy, who's almost becoming the Obi-Wan of the Scream series, reels off a number of reasons why Billy should be the killer, using past horror movies like Prom Night as an example, before working himself up into a full head of steam and throwing out the ultimate cliché of the slasher genre.
There's a formula to it! A very simple formula! Everybody's a suspect!
I don't know why, but the reading of that line and his reaction after saying it always makes me laugh. Billy obviously takes exception to this, and puts the spooks on Randy, which only increases Randy's belief that Billy's the killer. Being the kids of America, Stu decides to host a party at his place to celebrate the suspension of school. Oh yeah, a huge house in the middle of nowhere? This can't end well. I've got to say though, the locations used in this film are incredible. Sydney's house, which not only looks beautiful, but it's set in an amazing location. Stu's house, exactly the same, set in the middle of nowhere, and it just looks amazing. And even Casey's house at the beginning of the movie had this great feeling and mood to it. The location scouts really did a good job with this movie. Gail and her loyal cameraman follow the kids to the party location, and along with a smitten Dewey, gets inside the house and plants a camera so she can observe it from the news van. The only problem? A 30-second delay. Tatum leaves the party and heads for the garage to fetch some beers. She must be cold. Things don't quite go according to plan though, as she finds herself sealed off and cornered by Ghostface. Initially thinking Randy's under the mask and it's a prank, she soon realises that this is a little more serious as the killer draws the knife quite literally along her arm. She does manage to avoid him for a little while, but then in one of the most stupidest moves of the movie, she tries to get out through the cat flap, which goes about as well as you'd expect.
Ooh, nasty.
And with Tatum's death and the house party guests thinning, suddenly Billy puts in an appearance, and with Stu's blessings, Sydney and Billy head up to Stu's parents' room to talk. Upstairs, Sydney confesses her fears to Billy, fears about her mother, about possibly ending up like her, and eventually decides to give in to Billy, and the pair start to have sex. Downstairs, the remaining students, which include Stu and Randy, are watching Halloween, and commenting on Jamie Lee Curtis's breasts, and the horror fact that only virgins can survive the big chase scene. Back upstairs, and then in probably one of the most quoted scenes in Scream, Randy discusses the rules of surviving a horror movie.
There are certain rules that one must abide by in order to successfully survive a horror movie. For instance, number 1, you can never have sex. Big no-no! Big no!
I'm a dead man.
Sex equals death, okay? Number 2, you can never drink or do drugs. No, the sin factor. It's a sin. It's an extension of number 1. And number 3, never, ever, ever, under any circumstances say, I'll be right back. Because you won't be back.
I'm getting another beer. You want one?
Yeah, sure.
I'll be right back.
I just love the sheer cheek of this scene. It's pretty much satirising the whole genre, but does it in a completely respectful way, which is really hard to do. Outside in the news van on their 30-second delay, Gail and Kenny are watching the students watching Halloween. So they are watching the students in a horror film, watching a horror film. Yeah, get your head around that for a second. A few moments later, Dewey interrupts. A car's been spotted down the road, and Dewey's off to investigate and wants Gail to tag along.
You're not scared, are you?
As Gail and Dewey head off down the road, Randy gets a call in the house telling him that the principal's been found gutted and hanging from the goalposts in the football field. Far from being upset, the party clears out as the students want to get to the field before he's taken down. Principal Henry, he was much loved, ladies and gentlemen, leaving only our core characters left in the house. Now this is what I meant earlier when I was saying that the principal's death seemed like a throwaway death early at the time. It was actually really clever as it clears out the party and just leaves us with our core characters. The students, loaded with alcohol, all pile into their cars and take off down the road, nearly hitting Dewey and Gail, who share a quick kiss before Dewey notices Sydney's father's car parked off the road nearby.
And now, children, after fleshing out the characters, after building up the tension, after setting the rules, the shit is about to hit the fan.
Back in the bedroom after sex, Sydney questions Billy about his phone call from jail, which Billy seems to take offence to, only for Ghostface to make an appearance and cut Billy from the movie. The chase is on as the now non-virgin Sydney runs through the house with Ghostface close behind. Barricading herself in a room and climbing out of the top window, she falls, landing on a speedboat cover to find Tatum's dead body lodged in the garage door. Ugh, nasty. Back inside the house, Randy is still watching Halloween, and what can only be described as one of the most insanely tense and ironic scenes ever. He keeps telling Jamie Lee Curtis that the killer is behind him. I also find it funny that Randy is played by Jamie Kennedy, and all you can hear is,
Jamie, look behind you. Look behind you.
It's an even bigger flip of the fourth wall, and I love it. Outside, Sydney climbs into the news van only to see on the monitor the killer approaching Randy. On a 30-second delay, though, we see the killer leaving Randy alive and then suddenly appearing at the van, slitting Kenny's throat in the process. Lunging forward and stabbing Sydney in the shoulder, Sydney manages to barricade herself in the van and then escape into the night, while Dewey and Gail arrive back at the house. Telling Gail to call the sheriff and lock herself away, Dewey heads into the house armed with his gun, and as he prowls the halls looking for the killer, it's almost like he's being stalked by the Halloween theme.
If you've watched any of my previous videos, you'll know that Halloween is my favourite movie of all time. If you don't, now you do. But what I think is so good about this scene is that you get the screen film being played out while the Halloween footage and score is being played over it, and it fits. Somehow it fits so well. And there's also the subtle irony that these characters are watching a horror film while they're in one as well.
Outside, Gail finds blood all over the floor, and before she can contact the sheriff, she's surprised by Randy, who she knocks out with the phone. Starting up the van, only to discover blood on the windshield, she's startled by Kenny's body and then drives off the road and down an embankment after spotting Sydney standing in the middle of the street. With nowhere left to go, Sydney heads back to the house only to find Dewey in the doorway before he collapses with a knife in his back, and Ghostface again gives chase. Sydney manages to lock herself in Dewey's van, but before she can call for help, Ghostface again attacks, and she just manages to escape. Covered in blood, completely distraught, and seriously freaked out, she holds a gun to Randy, who tries to convince her the killer's Stu, only for Stu to appear and try to convince her of the opposite.
Fuck you both!
Yeah, I'd have done the same.
Inside the house locked in, Sydney's startled by the still-alive Billy, who takes her gun and opens the door, allowing Randy inside.
Stu's flipped out. He's gone mad.
We all go a little mad sometimes.
No, Billy!
So I guess Billy was the killer.
Help me, please.
Surprise, Sydney.
Two killers. I'll admit, when I first saw this, I did not see this coming. Cornered and unmasked, the killer's monologue.
Okay, word of warning. The following scene may shock you. If you ever wanted to see insanity brought to life, this is the scene.
Billy and Stu run through their reasons for killing Sydney's mother and for what they've been doing, which range from we're fucking insane to Sydney's mother was having sex with Billy's father, which revelation led to Billy's mother moving out and abandoning him. The final surprise being Sydney's father, with the plan being to frame the father so the only survivors are Billy and Stu. To make the plan work, though, they need to look the part and begin stabbing each other. But they have no idea the effect of a single stab because they based all their knowledge on horror movies. Irony, ladies and gentlemen.
She said everybody dies but us. Everybody dies but us. We're gonna carry on and plan the sequel, because let's face it, baby, these days, you gotta have a sequel.
Both end up mortally wounded and bleeding buckets, but before they can actually reach for the gun to end it, they find it being held by Gail, and she's pointing it at them. Sadly, she's not as good with the gun as she is with a microphone and doesn't realise the safety's armed. But Gail's distraction allows Sydney to hide away her father and herself and call the police, turning the tables on Billy and Stu by calling them using the voice changer.
Are you alone in the house?
Bitch! You bitch! Where the fuck are you?
Stu, mortally wounded and dying, tries to keep Sydney talking while Billy literally tears the house apart trying to find her. While the conclusion of Halloween plays in the background, Sydney, wearing the Ghostface costume, stabs Billy twice with an umbrella.
Interesting note about that scene. Skeet Ulrich, the actor playing Billy, when he was a young man, I think 10 years old, he had open heart surgery, so there's a part in his chest where there's a little stainless steel wire. Now, if you touch it, it causes an insane amount of pain. Now, during this scene, he's padded here, he's padded here. The stunt woman, underneath the mask, couldn't see because of the mask. So when you see this reaction, that's 100% real.
Now, apparently really dead, Stu takes some offence to the death of his partner in crime and tackles Sydney, but that doesn't go very well for him, and he ends up getting up close and personal with Jamie Lee Curtis. Goodbye, Stu. Both killers are dead and Sydney can finally relax, only to get a scare from Randy, who despite a gunshot to the shoulder is still alive.
Oh my god, Randy, I thought you were dead.
I probably should be. I never thought I'd be so happy to be a virgin.
But, not to be outdone, Billy is still alive and tries to strangle Sydney, leading to one of those moments that makes even me cringe. Sydney sticks her finger into Billy's stab wound. Ooh. He raises a knife and brings it down, but is shot by Gail, who finally turned the safety off.
Guess I remember the safety that time, you bastard.
Now, seeing as this guy has managed to come back in one film more times than Jigsaw did during the entire Saw franchise, Sydney makes doubly sure he's dead this time and shoots him in the head. Happy anniversary, bitch. And the film ends with Gail ignoring Dewey as he's wheeled away alive in an ambulance, reporting on the killings and closing the story.
And that's the first Scream. Now, a lot of people are probably going to agree or disagree. Again, completely entitled to that. But there's a reason this is one of my favourite films and favourite film series. And when you look at this film and then look at the current crop of horror movies or remakes that have come out recently, you can see what the problem with these films and why they don't succeed. There is no likeable characters in those films. You just can't wait for them to get killed off because they're so annoying. Scream has likeable characters, characters you care about, characters you want to survive. Not all of them, you know, and there's some people out there who are probably on the other side and can't wait for them all to die. But the majority of people care about these characters and you want them to survive. The story is really good and really builds well through the whole film. There's a point to it, as opposed to just hack, hack, slash, slash, kill, kill. The script is sparkling, it's got some great, great one-liners and a great satirical view on the whole horror genre. But that was Scream 1. Scream 2 finds our heroes... Hello?
Hello, Welshy.